on the Tuesday edition. How's everybody out there doing? Yes, we got a March Madness and NBA hoops. Indeed. It's good to see. Indeed. Our socials are on point. What's going on in the world of Twitter? We X them out. It's on point. Yes, indeed. YouTube. We got to finish it out. Bring Twitch over. Know what time it is. Create a dashboard. Let folks know. Might be interested. Can jump on, and that is a collective message for those out there in television land, as they say. If you want to be a positive and productive member of SandCity Sports, you are welcome. Welcome to SandCity Sports, my people, to the business. How's everybody doing on this Tuesday evening? Depending on where you're checking in from, East Coast, 10 and change, West Coast, 7 o'clock. Probably still have that good sunshine out there. You guys appreciating the daylight savings? I know that I am. Right? 7 o'clock, it's still light outside. Days are getting longer. April showers here in the Commonwealth in New England. So we have a little ways to go. I don't get really animated, excited, hopeful until we hit May, specifically that second week of May. All right. And then the weather really turns, gets warm. We see a whole week straight in the 70s. I love it. Love to check that forecast. And that second week of May, you got like 68, 71, 60, you know what I mean? And it's just straight for that week. And you're like, okay, we've turned the corner now. But we got another month of the April showers for the Mayflowers. So today, overcast, rain, cleared up. Tomorrow supposed to be clear, but it's not going to get warm, right? We gotta wait a little bit longer for that to take place. But I hope folks out there, everybody is getting the sunshine, whether it be external. You got to have the sunshine internally, of course, right? You got to find that light within you. However you process. Of just staying encouraged, staying motivated, appreciative, grateful, all those other things. My good buddy, my friend Endicott, you know, has one of his statements is, come get your daily dose of gratitude. It sticks with me, that daily dose of, okay, this is not where it needs to be, that not where it needs to be, okay, but I got all these things that I'm grateful for. And of course, Lou Gehrig, right? That historic speech. You might have heard I had a bad brag. Okay. Well, let me tell you, I got a lot to live for. How did it go? We got to get that for you. I can't just mention it to start us out. Yes, let's get that. Hold on. We can. SandCity's gonna start off, even though you know we're talking about what happened last night with March Madness. We're talking about what happened Sunday afternoon with March Madness. Yes, I'm talking about the Huskies and the Gamecocks. And we have to talk about what happened this afternoon in the NBA in terms of this wildness that's going on, that's just sweeping across the league. Another good man and a good coach. So we have quite a bit to get to. SandCity Sports, we're here for all of it because there's a lot. but just speaking about slice of life, how everybody out there is doing, right? You know what I mean? We're people, okay? Human beings. We talk sports, we talk culture, but there's a humanity we have to get to. And I mentioned, my good buddy Endicott, you know what I mean, and the get your daily dose of gratitude. And so now we're gonna go over, because I didn't do it justice, and we're gonna check in. Oh yes. Oh yes. And nothing better in sports encapsulates gratitude than Mr. Lou Gehrig. Let's go.
Gehrig hung up an amazing mark by playing in 2,130 consecutive games.
Mm-hmm.
Then a fatal disease attacked baseball's Iron Man. In Yankee Stadium, touched to tears by the tribute, Gehrig made his last public appearance.
For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad brag. Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. When you look around, wouldn't you consider it privilege to associate yourself with such a fine-looking man as is standing in uniform in this ballpark today? That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
The Iron Horse. I've got an awful lot to live for.
We begin with just how young
Keith Olbermann does a good job. I'm going to come back. I didn't realize the speech had a couple other segments. To go back and watch it in its entirety. Think about, right? Today, and this is Lou Gehrig, talk about the Iron Horse in this world of load management that we're living in. People with all the best doctors, they sit on a bench, they got the cushions on the bench, flying the private planes. Okay, my connection is super duper strong. I'll make that okay. Connection is strong, good. But don't want to show up to work. And my New York Knicks went down. I'm going to touch on the Knicks. Tough loss against the Boston Celtics tonight in Madison Square Garden. A battle down the stretch, but got edged out. It's going to be the second round battle. It's going 7, folks. Lock in for that. Okay. Celtics are getting into playoff mode. But my New York Knicks are going to have something for them in the second round. Okay. We wanted it to be a conference championship. That was the hope. But Cleveland had to do what Cleveland had to do. But folks are trying to, people, Josh Hart played 47 minutes tonight. Oh, my goodness. Tom, you wouldn't want to have the best job in the world and go out there and take part in the best job on the planet? Oh, my goodness. You trip over the curb, you get injured. This foolishness. Analytics. I walk out. So what? We don't go outside on rainy days now? Because the possibility of injury, we got to shut the society down because of a drizzle. Out of control. I don't mean we started on what's going on in baseball. Thrilled that baseball is going on. Talking a little bit of baseball and early in the season, Dodgers looking world beaters. Really want to get into baseball and this idea of the robotic umpires, which for me is only a segue for baseball to introduce the challenge. That's what baseball needs. They need a challenge. Period. End of story. Go ahead and check out the Ump Auditor on the Twitter, or wherever, YouTube, wherever it is. It's just incredible. Looking at the calls that, people get wrong. And by the way, you see, shout out to, SandCity, we doing it. You see the move to improve. Shout out to Mike Stevens. Shout out to Move to Improve out of Providence. Okay, Elite Referee Camp doesn't run as much anymore because Mike Stevens retired. But he did 4 or 5 national championship games. Used to do national championship game every single year. Was the referee for the national championship game year in and year out. Not widely considered, the best referee, college basketball referee in America, out of Providence, Massachusetts. Might have to end the show on that. Providence, Rhode Island. I apologize. Supposed to have a background in history. Heck is going on here. My bad on that. Providence, Rhode Island. I just, I don't want anybody from Rhode Island. I apologize. But the move to improve, great camp, great experience in my, earlier refereeing years. Actually proud to say a referee that I met at Move to Improve was the referee last night for the Natty, which was a great game. Did not like the ending. Was that I Houston all the way. But we're gonna get into that writ large. But back to today, I consider myself the luckiest man in the world. Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse, over 2,000 games of showing up when you have the bet. Right? What? Yeah, he showed up to work every single day. Cal Ripken, years later, surpassed that tremendous feat. But you just go from Lou Gehrig, the prime of your life, and in the blink of an eye. So there's just so much there in that great speech and how he handled the unbelievable adversity. So back to the beginning of the show. I hope everybody out there is we're doing what we can do. We're moving through, right? Tuesday, try to get that down, momentum. We get Wednesday, middle of the week, and then power through Thursday and Friday. Okay, and we will make it through. Okay, folks. So we're gonna, because the wildness in the NBA almost, I'm so okay, but we're doing Houston, Florida. All right, we will speak on the women's game and the Crown returning to Stores, Connecticut, and then we're gonna come back and talk about this outlandishness that's going on, sweeping across the NBA, in a 2-month whatever segment. I don't know if the league has ever seen this type of insanity, overreach, but instability for sure in terms of moves, disruptive, out of the box, long shot moves. We're talking Luka being shipped out of Dallas, and certainly today with Mike Malone being booted, with 2 shakes of a lamb's tail left in the NBA season. And yes, I'm throwing Taylor Jenkins. He's not an NBA championship coach. He's a very skilled, one of the better coaches in the league, evidenced by the fact that the Memphis Grizzlies, with Ja being there, Ja not being there, Ja being back, Ja with the air gun, all of this, back and forth at the top of the Western Conference. This year and competing in the conversation. No, they're not an OKC. No, they're not a Cleveland. No, they're not a Boston. But they're also not a Phoenix. They're not a Sacramento. A very talented, sorely underachieving team. And for Taylor to get the boot. So this 2-month window in terms of the NBA, it's distinctive. We have not seen this. We're not talking about Paul Westhead over to and the coach in 82 that they switched to of the LA Lakers, or one Mr. Pat Riley. We're not talking about that. That didn't happen a yawn away from when the NBA season concluded. Happened early in the season, and the rest is history. A slick, confident, young coach named Pat Riley. The rest is history. Early 80s. What are we talking about here? 40 plus years. And that move, that switch has been proven correct, as Pat Riley is still a power broker in the NBA, not an untested young coach as he was in 82 when the Lakers made the move early in the season. We're going to get into what Magic Johnson had to say about the situation with Mike Malone. But specific folks, let's just we got to talk about the Natty last night. we got to talk about the Natty last night, and it's just there's a number thing. Come on now, you know, SandCity was big. Houston v. Florida, last play. Come on now. Can we get the last play of the game? We're gonna get the last. We're gonna get it for you on the screen. Okay, we're gonna get it for you on the screen. We have to look at this and then break it down. Let's see what's going on. We get this. Okay, we're gonna share. Sharing is caring, folks. Sharing is caring. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing out there? Facebook land. Okay. Everything is good. I don't know what the heck. Sometimes on my IG, we gotta refresh. We gotta refresh the IG. Then we come on back. IG is good. Okay. Good. IG is good. You're back rocking with me. The Twitter, the YouTube, the Twitch, where they need to be. Okay, so let's get into this, folks. Okay. We're not gonna go and do the entire. We have to look at the last play, though. We got to look at the last play. I'm going to freeze it, and then we'll come back. Okay? What the heck is going on?
Although made the two big ones the other night.
It should have never left Crier's hands. It should have stayed in Four's hands. Give it up. Give it back to Crier. Go. Do not pass off. No. No.
He walked. He can't touch it. He can't. 1 second. And it's over. Florida is back on top of the college basketball world. Championship madness. It's a great day to be a Gator. They win the national title.
Yeah, I know. Again, folks.
Houston did not get a shot off. Line has been a delay.
Okay. Stop it right here. All right, so let's get a couple things straight off the bat. All right, we know the credit goes to the man in the arena, and hindsight is 20/20. Okay, we know those things. All right, so in these spots, sink or swim, you tip your hat to those that are out there getting it done. That being said, folks, okay, I vehemently disagree with the ball being taken out of Crier's hands. The person with the ball, he had been the straw that stirs the drink for Houston. I don't know why on this play and then down the stretch, we're going to have to wind it back and go look at a couple other plays. That was my issue, first and foremost. Why are you taking the ball out of your primary playmaker's hands? Sharp is not a playmaker. He's a spot-up shooter. He's not someone. Yes, he hit some big threes, particularly, the game was going back and forth, and he hit a deep three, you know what I mean? But that was the exception in this run, specifically against Duke. Let me just go ahead and check this real quick. Okay, double check on these things. Got it. Crier. And in this game as well, he was cooking. He's the one that needs to have the ball in his hands to make a play. You took it out of his hand. That, to me, Sharp had to just bounce it off. Sharp is not just an ISO player. He is not. He's a spot-up shooter. He's a sniper. That's number one. Just glaring. You don't see Todd Golden taking the ball out of Clayton's hands and using Clayton as a decoy in the corner. No, I'm putting the ball in my playmaker's hands to make a play. If they blitz, then he can kick it and we can move it around, kick it to find the open man. But you're going to have to feel that pressure of my best player coming at you. Why? Down the stretch, was the ball taken out of Crier's hands? Point one. Point two. This is the last play of the game, and they basically just ran a set. What did we talk about? George Karl, it's not always about running a play. It's about putting your players in position to make a play. They just ran a double screen in the late clock, mind you. FYI. Once you get down under 7 seconds, you can't just go to something scripted like, oh, here, pass that the defense can predict and anticipate. You have to make something happen. You got to get some momentum to the bat. You have to do it. You can't just pass and expect somebody to be wide open. You did nothing. I'm yelling here. What's going on? My connection is good. Connection is good, people. You did nothing to put pressure on the defense, and you expect somebody to be open? Why? They just ran a set. And you hear Clayton talking about it. Like, all these sets, however sophisticated they may be at this level, you can see based on the formation. You play football. You look at a particular formation. You're like, they can do this, that, or the third. Okay? Before the quarterback makes an audible, or the quarterback makes somebody miss to create something, you just look at how they're positioned and you say, all right, this is what they're trying to do unless they reinvent the wheel. Watch this again, So that's my Kelvin Sampson. Instinctively, you don't take the ball away from your guy. Crier had one, and I'm gonna have to watch all of these. But Crier had one out of bounds that was going, that was the crucial possession. He just stepped on the line by accident, and it was one of the turnovers down the stretch for Houston. But after that, you just took the ball away from him. Watch this again. They just tried to run a play instead of spacing it and having a couple different, like, okay, we're going to space it, put the ball, and just let your quarterback be a quarterback. Let your quarterback be the quarterback. Not just, this is what we're doing, execute. And then Sharp clearly, he just wasn't ready. He was jittery. He wasn't ready. He had time. He just went right into a shot. He saw the guy closing out. It's only a 2-point game. And he had already decided, I'm going to shoot a 3. Before even seeing what the defense gives him, he had time. Hindsight 2020, yes. But again, that's what I go crazy about. You picked the player that you needed. You had a better player that could do something for you. That had been doing stuff for you. And now he's a doggone decoy? Not even on the right screen.
Although made the 2 big ones the other night. National championship is in the balance. 13 seconds left.
Too much time waiting.
Florida leads it by 2.
Okay, he gets it back.
Go.
10. Time to go. It's 7 seconds. You don't have time.
5 seconds. Sharp. He walked. He can't touch it. He can't. 1 second. And it's over. Florida is back on top of the college basketball world. Championship madness. It's a great day to be a Gator. They win the national title.
Too far.
And a dilemma, although made the 2 big ones the other night. National championship is in the balance. 13 seconds left. Florida leads it by 2. Uzan gonna go.
Chilling.
Uzan, give it up. Crier, 6 seconds.
Here he comes.
5 seconds. Sharp.
He's got 4 to 5 seconds. Why does he go right into his shot? He's not ready. You backed the wrong horse. Why? And I can't blame him for not being ready. He hadn't been that guy all game. He hadn't had a lot of usage. Crier was the guy. Again, my last dance people. My people here, folks. We're going back to 97. The Chicago Bulls. Okay? Not 98 when Jordan got the steal. You know what I mean? Did he push off on? It is what it is in that particular point. We ain't calling a foul on the greatest of all time on a little 50-50. We're going to let Byron wrestle you. You got shook out of your shoes. Admit it. It is what it is. Might have to get that for you on the screen. But folks, the year before that, in 97, at home, who did Jordan skip it to get the game winner? Who did he skip it to when the double came from Stockton? Why was this player on the court in the first place? You know who he is. I know who he is. He won a couple championships and a couple more as a head coach. Mr. Steve Kerr, yes, is the one that hit the game winner in 97 in the Bulls dynasty. And what did Michael Jordan say to him? If the double comes, be ready. And he was ready, and he had Jordan's trust. But why was he wide open? Because the dominant player had the ball in his hands, putting the pressure on the defense. It wasn't as though they gave it to Steve Kerr and let Steve Kerr go out there and get us a bucket. And if you get in trouble, skip it over to Michael Jordan. Steve Kerr, go get us a bucket. And if you get in trouble, Scotty and Michael and maybe even Tony Kukoc are there to help you? What? You put the ball in your best player's hands. Come on. Take a look at this last 3 minutes. Heck is going on. Break down some film on SandCity.
I think he's got to give it up. That's it.
Okay, what's coming here? Who does Todd? We didn't even watch. Come on, go.
I think he's got to give it up. That's it. Oh, Clayton. Oh, off the heel. Roberts is there. A minute 50 to play.
A quick check. Yeah, but a great late contest by Sharp.
That's true. They're running some nice action, though. Uzan for Tugler. A minute 40 on the clock.
Is this where Creighton stepped? I think this is
Houston leads by one. They got bunched up in the area. Uzan now controls it.
No,
he likes to get right in the lane. Uzan lines it up. Piece.
No.
It's Richard who does get a piece.
Empty possession.
Blue shirts all there. They should have grabbed it. Get it in. Crier. Nice fake. Pull up. Hangs. What a rebounding Tugler. Knocked away for a moment. And out of bounds. They're going to roll it out for Clayton. Florida is down by one. Clayton takes it. Nice cut. Condon inside. Shows it. Floats it up. No. Rebound. How can it? And knocked into the hands of Uzan with a minute.
Houston having their chances. I think this is where Sharp just dribbles it right off his leg.
Hook shot right there.
Because he's not the guy.
Under a minute left. Houston holding on to a 1-point lead. The block by Halted. Crier didn't have a chance. Great help. Clayton over to Martin. He drives. Martin Baker, no. Foul call. It's at 76%.
Okay, let's come back. In fairness, this was an awful possession.
Under a minute left. Houston holding on to
Okay. All right. I respect trying to make a play, going to the basket, looking for contact. But Houston could have got a much better shot on this. And maybe this is why Sampson went away from Crier. I still, for the aforementioned reasons, don't agree with it. But he's driving into, he's looking for a foul, driving into the trees, and they just could have got a better shot. Now going to the basket, that the mindset is right to get to the line. But this is the equivalent of Clayton's early three, right? that, it wasn't a high percentage shot. The theory, like Clayton, okay, it's a rhythm shot, so and I can hit them, okay, going to the basket, trying to get contact, okay, but you didn't get a high percentage shot on this possession.
1 point lead. The block by Halted.
Okay, so not terrible, but with 16 seconds left, this might have been the reason Sampson, you don't get that might have been why he went away from Collier, because that was an empty possession when you needed a good possession. Not to let me try to see something up, dipsy-do. Okay? So, look, that bad, very bad. There. Right? You're up 1, you have time, and you just get, let me just try. That was no good. Doesn't annul my overarching argument. That doesn't mean you go away from somebody. You notice he got to the lane. He just made a terrible decision once he was in the lane. He could have just dribbled around, skipped it. You cracked the paint. You forced the defense to help. Now make a better decision than just some up and under. That's frankly a youth basketball. He had no angle, nothing. Looking for a foul, didn't even have, wasn't even in a position to draw a foul. It was a terrible possession. Okay, but again, that being said, you don't cut your nose off to spite your face. Well, I can't trust you, so I'm going to trust, a spot-up shooter to no. They run that same action, folks. He cracks the defense, which he has been doing this whole tournament run, okay? And then you spot up sharp for a drive and kick. Now you're talking. Now you're talking a play. Have him crack the defense, then you skip it to Sharp rather than just passing it over to him, and double screen. But who knows? He's not open. He's open if the defense, if that man coverage has been broken, now Sharp is going to be open because that secondary defender having to come over or just give up a layup. So let's Collier off a possession.
Houston holding on to a 1 point
no
lead.
No angle, no nothing. What is he even thinking?
The block by Halted. Collier didn't have a chance. Great help. Clayton over to Martin. He tries. Martin Baker, no. Foul call. At 76%. They're up by 1.
I think we want a timeout now, but
we're down to 40 seconds remaining in a 1 point game. Collier.
Nice defense.
Shot clock down to 15. Sharp using the screen.
Dribbles it
Sharp
off his
with 10.
terrible.
Out of bounds. Turnover, Houston. Houston had a wild comeback against Duke. Duke couldn't get the ball in cleanly. Florida does. They surround Halted. Now to Clayton. Ahead. Over Aberdeen's head. He tracks it down, and then there's contact. Uzan will get called for the foul with 19.7. The furious comeback. Aberdeen makes the second attempt at 65-63.
2. That foul line has been a dilemma. They made the 2 big ones the other night.
National championship is in the balance. 13 seconds left. Florida leads it by 2.
Uzan gonna go.
Uzan, give it up. Collier, 6 seconds, 5 seconds. Sharp.
He walked. He can't touch it.
He can't. 1 second. And it's over. Florida is back on top of the college basketball world. Championship madness. It's a great day to be a Gator.
Gonna watch this one more time. One of the things that Kelvin
has been a
said,
dilemma. They made the 2 big ones the other night.
National championship
he
is in the
could have
balance.
upfaked him and then
13 seconds left.
got inside. He had
Florida
enough time.
leads it by 2.
Uzan gonna
Even though
go.
it's late,
Uzan, give it up. Collier, 6 seconds, 5 seconds.
Okay, there's the up fake. He had 5 seconds. Okay, he has the chance to up fake. Now he's too far out in a 2-point game. Look how right? You're only down 2. Why are you so far to make it, he's not going to be able, or it's going to be very difficult to him, not impossible, to get all the way to the paint here. Okay? So it's a 2-point game. You can get fouled and give yourself a chance to tie or to win. You're catching it, at the, Steph Curry laying out here. But still, that being said, you do have 5, and this guy's closing out. Kelvin Sampson said in the press conference, rightfully so, it's time for the up fake to free yourself up. Up fake.
Sure.
Just pure panic, and you have 4 seconds. That was my issue with the Duke game, where they had 3.7 seconds and just threw a Hail Mary full of grace for no particular, right? You got plenty of time to get a quality shot off, even though you're far out from where you should be in a tight game. And you're in the double bonus anyway. You're in the double bonus. So any foul, you got a chance to tie.
He walked. He can't touch it.
He can't. 1 second. And it's over.
All right, hindsight 2020, folks. Anybody can,
It's a great day to be a Gator. They win the national title.
Going nuts.
Houston did not get a shot off.
As much as you say, listen, you got to empathize with people, the pressure, so on and forth, and jitters, and you know what I mean? But that's what you signed up for as well. So we're not going too far down that road. Oh my goodness, I need a participation trophy. You hurt my feelings, and I feel. That's what you signed up for. It's competition, my friend. You're gonna be winners, you're gonna be losers. Buckle up. However, buckle up. Yeah, you're gonna lose. And I don't believe in participation trophies. We can agree to disagree. If there's nothing wrong with them if that's your thing. I don't believe in. Cry those tears, particularly at a young age. Cry them. Early. Take some losses. Okay, a lot of emphasis. Youth sports is a beautiful thing, wonderful. But just because you're the champion in 4th grade, don't mean you're gonna be a champion when you're juniors and seniors. It's good to have. You take your pictures. You feel good. You don't want to lose. You learn the difference between winning and misery, particularly at the youth sports. Right? Young, I remember I would cry tears of pain. Remember those days? I used to cry. I used to cry when you lost and throw fits. So angry. The world's coming to an end because you have to wait. Remember, in youth, you have to wait a whole another week to play another game. Oh, I'll never play another game again. So long. Oh, this is terrible. You had to that loss all week was on you. Right? And that's the stuff that's going to make you better, by the way. Yeah, that will give you the hunger. That give you that, I'm going to show them. I'm not going there anymore. Right? Those losses. Right? So, a little quick segue over to the youth level. So for Houston, you lost because you lost. And you frankly gave many a thing away. And I there's enough to go around. You know what I mean? The pressure and those more, but it's no. Because everybody's under pressure. Florida's been under pressure. And we're talking about what Houston didn't do. Florida, the reason that they were under pressure against Texas Tech. They were under pressure against Auburn. But in those moments, you saw a tale of two cities. Because Houston, flat out, veteran coach, veteran players, folded. Florida, coach that's not even 40, guys that just got together a couple months ago, in those high-pressure situations. And that, again, is coaching and culture. They went to the free throw line and made, now, okay, he didn't miss a free throw. He didn't make every free throw because they could have made it 3, and then, so he missed a free throw there. They left the door open. All right, but the quality of their possessions, they were scheming up high percentage shots. You make some of them. And by the way, I'm bringing it up. I got my referee shirt on. We're going to talk about the officiating before we move over to the UConn game. Hope everybody out there is doing well. We'll talk about the officiating. But there was a basket interference call missed in the first half. We do remember that. When the Florida player clearly took the ball off the rim. And they ended up losing by 2. Now, is that the reason they lost? Absolutely not. We're not going to make a one-to-one connection there, folks, at all. Reason being, in officiating, the way that you're going to miss calls, and they missed that call, and they took away 2 points, and they lost by 2. But here's the reason I didn't decide anything. Because it happened with 3 or 4 minutes to go in the first half. In terms of the mistakes that officials make, right, under 4, you got to shut those mistakes down because teams don't have time. And specifically under 2 is when a call can decide a game. It will decide the game. Your bad call. Because that team does not have the time to recover. You took away points or a possession. They cannot get that possession back. So if it's a 3-point game and you boot a call and take away a possession and then it goes up to 5, they're not going to be able to get back to a 1-possession game without having to foul or so on and forth. That's how officials look at things like that. So, you boot a call, 10 minutes to go. And you missed this 2 points. And they lost by 2. No. Because there's so much time and other calls that can be made to balance that out. Okay, for example, right? If you go back, in the first half was so well officiated. And that's poor grammar. But there were 4 fouls total in the first half. And let me tell you something, folks. From an officiating standpoint, the good officials, the championship officials, talk about game management. They, the ones out there, me, here, as an official, I've been to some college camps. Okay, I know a thing or two. All right. Now, it's the same thing for officials. I will let you know. We remember the call on Cooper Flag. That was not a foul. Did that decide the game? No. Did it disadvantage Duke? Yes. Now, Houston went to the free throw line and made their 2 free throws, and made them pay, but not a foul. Okay, and that put them, under some pressure. They still had time and plenty of possessions. I talked about it. Cooper fading away instead of going to the basket. Them Duke giving, you don't have to rush, and that's it. And it's only a 1-point game. So Duke could have held the ball to the very, very, very end and just charged the basket and really forced the rest to make a call. Or just schemed up something to get a bucket and go ahead. And then, of course, they had time. They just threw the ball away. Right? But they were disadvantaged by a bad call under 2 minutes. Okay, but they still had time to recover from said bad call. Okay? Houston and Florida. Right? Yes, so the ball, and they missed that call there. But again, there's time. Now, do I feel that because they missed the basket interference, we needed to have 5 fouls all on one team in the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the second half? No. And 2 or 3 of those 5 fouls were just nickel dimers. The foul in transition, the big man's going, you know what I mean? It was just anticipatory nonsense. Refs get 2 tenths. Worry about, I can't miss anything. I got to control the game. Whereas, again, move to improve as an official. Guys, what are you talking about? You go to a elite restaurant, that just has, you're paying $40 for these small plates with the, nutritious, but you look at how you pay $40 and there ain't no food on that plate. I stop by, I get my, my D11 combo. My local Asian restaurant, I get the D11. I got enough food for 2 plates. You see some of these gourmet chefs, you're paying all this money, and it doesn't seem that there's that much food in the plate. Well, first of all, it's extremely nutritious and all the rest of that stuff and tastes, so they scheme it out a different way. But guys, those high price, excuse me, it's the quality of the ingredients. It's the quality of the ingredients that makes for the great restaurant. The chef can do what they can do, all right, but the chef needs the quality ingredients for it all to come together and it to be top of the line. All right. So what does that have to do with anything, folks? What's the connection? The connection is if you're refereeing a national championship game, these are the best of the best. Talent, athleticism, okay, coach, the whole 9 yards. They understand what to do and what not to do. So back to those 5 fouls to begin the second half, okay? Give that play a second. Let me tell you how the rule is written. Every player has a right to a space on the floor, provided they get there first and legally. Basketball is a freedom of movement sport. Every player has a right to a space on the floor, provided they get there first and legally. That's the framework. Now, let me tell you the finest rule in the rule book. It's called incidental contact. The best rule, in my opinion, of our game. And there's many great rules in terms of the evolution of the game. Incidental contact. Contact that does not affect the normal offensive or defensive movement is to be deemed incidental. If it doesn't affect the normal offensive or defensive movement, we call this advantage, disadvantage. You have the best athletes, the best skill players, national championship game. That contact that occurs, all right, and that defender who many times is trying not to foul. It's one thing you can tell if somebody is trying to foul somebody, they will foul them. Football players in a basketball space, I'm just going to run through you. You have the space. I'm just going to move through that space, thereby necessitating a foul. You're dislodging, all that stuff. Okay, but we see this particularly in the post and some of these nickel dimer charges. The player just falls over. Okay, when you get that first bump, but they've been doing that all game. Defensive players there, you bump him. Yes, you're coming into his space, but he's not moving. He's straight up. That first bump, play on. Then you're trying to get an angle, trying to see if you can find the window. All right. The good defender is going to keep you on the outside so you can get an angle, but you're going to be shooting over his length, back rim out. So once you don't get the angle, you're going to take a contested low percentage shot, right? What do you see them do? They just wall up around you. Wall up. That defender has a right to that space from the floor to the ceiling. All right? They wall up. Then you can try to shoot over them. You see you go, there's so much contact, but they're there. They're set. They have legal guarding position, torso facing. Legal guarding position. And so they don't have to roll out the red carpet for you to score. Even though some of these games, you think you want everybody to have everything. Where am I going with this, folks? Okay? That second half, there's no reason Florida has 5 fouls in the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They did not try to commit 5 fouls. There might have been contact on 5 plays, but that contact, to me, in at least 3 of those plays, minimum 2, did not affect the normal offensive or defensive movement. It could have been deemed incidental, and we play on. Like they did in the first half where it was tremendous. Okay, but Florida racks up 5 fouls in the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Again, a skilled referee. We have to have consistency. So you see a bunch of nickel dimers against Houston. Officials, we understand. We look up 5 fouls, and you're in hot water because it's 20 minutes. We don't have quarters on the men's side. So this team's going to be in a bonus, which they were with like 15 minutes. You don't want that. You don't want all these stoppages. You want a ball game. People showed up to see a ball game. Okay? Not putting on the 18th green, which is what a free throw contest, which is what this game devolved into, is. Right? You want to see up and down action. If there's a foul, you're going to be fouled, but you get the elephants and you leave the mice alone. They got a whole bunch of mice to start the second half. which meant they had to get a whole bunch more mice. Call a bunch of nickel dimers to balance the scales. You don't want it to be 8 fouls to none. As a skills, I mean, you could if you don't care. Todd Golden got upset. He had a right to be upset because a lot of these were nickel dimers, and it swung the game and allowed Houston to go build up a 12-point lead. Which Florida stayed cool, hit their threes, they score in bunches, and then Houston just didn't execute. But it was a tale of two cities. Second half completely different because first half they came out, they stepped back, and again in officiating, you can always step back. And that's why the Cooper flag is just so horrendous, and in referees, it's just unbelievably egregious. But in officiating, we say you can always come in a second late. You can always come in a second late rather than a second early. You can always come in a second late. Give it an extra second to see. That Cooper flag, he just hit the ball in the air. Houston could have got the ball anyway. What are we doing? It wasn't like he bowed the guy and then just grabbed the ball and like, ha-ha. He just hit it in the air. It was a 50-50 ball. Houston comes away with that, even though he a little bit of contact. We're good. There's been no advantage gained. None. Incidental, play on. You want to see some great basketball in terms of watch, and NBA does a better job, frankly, in the regular season. Used to be a lot of, Paul Pierce was a master at this. Those little bumpity bump, get to the freaking NBA calls less of them than the regular season. The playoffs, the big boy. Best of the best. So don't matter who you are, you drive to the lane, those players are there, you're not getting those calls. NBA playoff officiating is, the best that we have on the planet as far as I'm concerned. Okay, 2 very skilled, very motivated teams just going at it. All right, and a game of inches, and smaller units of space to angle it, to get the advantage. And if you don't get it, then you don't get it. But we're not gonna, just because you throw your body into somebody else or fall on the ground, do a triple somersault. No. Right? You have to make plays over and against set and skill defense. That's what you have to do. NBA playoffs, right? So officiating could have been better in the second half. Turned into a chess match with all the free throws and a number of stoppages, but that's not what decided anything. Nor the basket interference in the first half. Came down to the last 4, specifically the last 2, and executing or not executing. Just let folks know what's going on. A little bit. We got a little bit of time. See if we get folks that want to chime in with us for the tail end here. Just let them know. My heart, you know what I mean? Like I say, sometimes you'd rather lose by 100 than lose by 1. Two things in sports. We talked about that, man. There's winning and there's misery. So Houston, and it was misery in the 80s, 83, 5 slam and jammer. Then you didn't box out. That slight, you don't, that small slip up, you don't box out that one time on the last possession and the whole thing, right? Shout out to Hoop Dreams. You don't tighten that one screw and the whole structure can collapse. It's just life, right? It's just the way of the world sometimes. And that's, now it wasn't just one thing, it was a collection of things. Players had chances, they could have, this and that and the third, so on and forth. But that last play, just in a number of capacities, did not like the design, needed Crier to be more involved. And then, there was time to it was just rushed. It was nervous. It was human. and it was ineffective. You saw it. I saw it. It is what it is. So hats off to the Gators. Respect to Todd Golden. Down the stretch, last bit of this, because we're gonna hard cap at 11:30 for this episode. But they got some stuff on the socials. You see Todd Golden when he was a Columbia assistant coach, and then was a assistant coach for Bruce Pearl. Now he's a national champion. So those apprentice that's super hungry, and that's going to get it done one way or another. We don't sleep on them. Okay, folks. So down the home stretch, shout out. Let's get it up there for you on the screen. Let's get another Twitter going on here, because one Twitter is the live. All right, let's get another Twitter, and we got to put respect on the Huskies' name. Shout out UConn. I don't like, man. I go to, there's just too much. There's just too much madness sometimes that I see on Twitter. It just gets me. Just let them know. This is not good. We're gonna get to this. First things. Bro's gonna try to get on. Let me know. Goodness, poor. We're live here. This is not good. We got to get over to the Huskies. Oh, boy. We got to get to the Huskies. There we go. There we go. Because sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. Folks, let's come over here. Scroll down. We're back. As we say, been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step 9 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, since this natty, folks. Well-deserved, one-sided affair. Talked about it, how they put a beat down on South Carolina during the regular season. I thought that was a little bit of gamesmanship. Turned out to be just a forerunner for another Mike Tyson knockout. In the national championship, South Carolina started off fast, 5-7 shooting, but then after that, the Huskies just, slowly, surely, definitively eased and moved away from them. And then it was just undeniable. A couple things that I have to say. Again, back to being a chef and having the best ingredients. Sarah Strong, freshman, playing for the Huskies. Okay, so when you have the best players, you're likely going to be winning. Why is that important for me? Because in years past, the Aaliyah Bostons and the Aja Wilsons, the dominant post players, have ended up in South Carolina playing for Dawn Staley. Okay, but the combination of your upperclassmen leadership, who had battled through adversity, talking about Paige Beckers and Ozzie Fudd. Ozzie, not to be denied, kind of people might have forgotten that she was the number 1 overall prospect out of high school. Been a lot of conversation, talking about, well, UConn, you could have got Caitlin Clark and you didn't recruit Caitlin Clark, and what was the deal with that? Folks, Paige Beckers went to the Natty as a freshman. Let's remember that. Okay, and then just Caitlin Clark was doing her thing as a freshman, and she's doing her thing as a sophomore as well. But we didn't really know Caitlin Clark was until they usurped South Carolina in a game they were supposed to lose. Right? Okay, so Caitlin Clark was good as a freshman. Becker's probably better. But then the injury started for UConn. Okay, and so UConn last year, playing in the semifinal, having Iowa up against the ropes for the chance to play the South Carolina Gamecocks. And, I don't think either one of those teams was better than South Carolina last year. No two ways about it. And that wasn't a moving screen or whatever nonsensical call down the stretch that, essentially gave Iowa an advantage that UConn couldn't recover from. But Ozzie Fudd was hurt last year. Caroline Ducharme was hurt last year. So Geno even getting to the Final Four and then pushing Iowa to the brink without his full complement, that's why this year, for me, listen, they're back. They have their full team. Okay, and it's been, that surprise that they're number 2 seed. They lost some games here and there. They could have been number 1 seed. The people wanted UConn and USC, Juju and Beckers and to see, right? That would have been the real matchup for them, the real deal matchup. Handled UCLA. But just from the standpoint of this, it's great to see, never mind Geno getting back. And I noted, this is a big championship. Geno's already got 12, and he's saying, I ain't going nowhere. This could have been an opportunity for Dawn Staley to start climbing that ladder. She's at 3, got a ways to go to get to Pat Summitt at 8, and then had a ways to go more to get to Geno at 11. But, Dawn Staley lost going away. And, there was some some angst on the sidelines, which you saw and everybody saw, which we can talk a little bit about. We'll get to that in a second. And so that's, Geno, he's still stealing those championships away from the next generation of coaches, right? And it's been a couple of generations. He went toe-to-toe with Pat Summitt. When he started, Summitt was the dominant force, and he was the ascending force. Okay, and so as Tennessee faded and UConn stepped, they just kept winning and winning and winning, and we go from Sue Bird, we go to Tarazi, okay, then we go to Maya Moore. A lot of people forget about Maya Moore in the hierarchy of the all-time greats. You put some respect on Maya's name, and then obviously Breanna Stewart, okay, and then in the mid-teens, again, when Colby and Gigi were at the game, Gigi was determined to go to UConn. So I thought it was great. Gigi would have been a freshman on this UConn team. Okay, and the team showing love to the Bryant family, which is out of this world. But UConn in the 2015, 2016, or maybe 2017, 2018, in there, I think it was 2017, 2018, they lost 2 buzzer beaters in the Final Four. Like 2 years in a row, they lost on buzzer beaters. Right? Pandemic happens, world shuts down, and other teams have usurped them. The South Carolinas, the Iowas, others, the Baylors, the LSUs. But for Geno to get this and to say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still getting these natties. And anybody that had any thought about either upending or surpassing what I've been doing or what we've been doing in Storrs, Connecticut for decades, think again. We right here. We ain't going nowhere. So tip of the hat to UConn. This a distinctive championship because it takes, this is the longest drought since the beginning of the dynasty. Almost a Tom Brady situation where there's a decade in between three-peats or 3 championship sequences, which is crazy. And then the 7th one in Tampa Bay to just put them out of reach. Okay. Dawn Staley, true to self and And we'll we're gonna winding this down, but there's more. Respect to Coach Staley, respect, and we talked about it. Favorite coach in women's college sports. But it was difficult. It was difficult. And the bottom line in this game, and you try to rally your team and you're going through it, as a coach, I get all of that. But the bottom line is they just didn't have it. Player for player, UConn was just a better team. And on top of that, some of South Carolina's ball players were not on the same, were not in the mindset they needed to be. Turnovers and bad body language. So there's a number of things. Okay, beyond the fact that UConn was just a better team. Yeah, but they were the better talent-wise, and then they were better together-wise. Okay, and so that is, much for because that had been South Carolina. South Carolina had been better talent and together-wise, in their championship streaks. In their in the 3 finals in 4 years, and winning the 3, and so South Carolina was they were better than you, and then their culture was stronger than yours. And in the championship game, it was the other way around for UConn. So we're gonna come back to that. Some clips that Dawn Staley just kind of deconstruct and how the modern game affects the women's game as well. I think I saw today that they just got a player out of the portal that was the leading scorer in the nation. So, Staley, he ain't going nowhere. But UConn was far superior. Okay, we're not gonna because winding down. Okay, shout out to UConn. And we'll finish the last segment here on what's going on in the NBA. Okay, so I'm not right, but we discussed this. I didn't borrow any take. That was mine. And I just talked about it. But Magic Johnson saying it. 2 superstars traded in the middle of the season. For 45 years, Magic's been around. Never seen anything like this. So there we go. I didn't borrow that, steal that. That was that. But it's just outlandish. Okay, Mike Malone, quality coach. And what this says, go ahead and watch Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, always be closing. Go ahead and watch the company men, Ben Affleck, Chris Cooper, Tommy Lee Jones, Kevin Costner's in it. Really strong. The company men, indie film. Nobody's irreplaceable in the corporation except the CEO. Talk about capitalism. Talk about, the CEO is the CEO. Everybody else can get this smoke. Everybody. And we that's took me a little bit too long in life to understand. Talk about it being a dog eat dog world and what have you. But the Mike Malone situation, just wild. And we can throw Mike Brown in there as well, folks. We haven't forgotten about Mike Brown. Talk about Taylor, it's just Taylor Jenkins and Mike Malone is just so close in proximity, but Mike Brown was, treated the same way earlier in the season. So championship coaches who have done, yeoman's work for these organizations. But when there's these fierce intellectual, disagreements, team hadn't been playing great. I get it. A lot of that had to do with Murray not being there, but still, this is disrespect right here, is what it is. Clear as day. This is some disrespectful stuff. And it just gets to the point in the company, the CEO can stay. Everybody else can get it. This is mine, belongs to me. I know it's sports, so it's collective and community and kumbaya, all the rest. But bottom line, in business, end of the day, if somebody has to suffer, it's not going to be the CEO. It's not going to be Daddy Warbucks. Even though Daddy Warbucks can stand a little bit of short-term pain because he's Daddy Warbucks, but he ain't going to do it. She ain't going to do it. No, right? The good stuff flows up. The negativity flowing down. Period. End of story. Just on that premise. All right. Sad, unfortunate, aggravating, but fundamental to the capitalist state, the quote-unquote free market. My team, I'm doing it my way, regardless if it helps or hurts. That's what has to be maintained at all costs. Go ahead and check it out, At All Costs, which is a great documentary about grassroots basketball. Okay, folks. So yeah. Got it on a little bit later. So we went a little bit later, but and there's still some meat on some of these bones. We ain't not done by a long shot with the NBA. This is going to take us into the weekend. We're coming back to Mike Malone and the Denver Nuggets. We get a little taste tonight, but we're coming back to that. A little bit more to say about Dawn Staley in the UConn and just the national and a great season for women's basketball. But just a lot there. Okay, the up and coming ascending coach, and the veteran coach that's not going away. And it's going to continue to be in women's college basketball, and it's great for women's college basketball. Just like with the NBA, having Pop a part of the game is tremendous. Now Pop might be front office now, but so be it. We had just as much of that was great that Pop continued through the rebuilding years, and it's just wonderful. Okay, but where am I going with that? Contrarily, when folks are jettisoned that could contribute to the game and to the culture, it's equally frustrating or upsetting. So more on Mike Malone NBA situation. And the NFL draft is not it's still there, folks. So a lot that we're going to be discussing going forward. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I am your host, the Cape Cod Kid, artist formerly known as Andre King. This here is SandCity Sports. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. Passion project from day one. A filmmaker is a person that makes films, so just do my best and continue to try to improve and get better. Thanks so much, and we will see you again the next time. Peace.